You mean that boring movie? I mean, it wasn't interesting until The Rescuers Down Under, and I think that's his most controversial Disney opinion.
I'm not talking to him at Christmas.
Thank you for joining the Escape With Me book club. Escape with me, Sam Reiner.
And me, Tim Bergman.
Into our most recent read. Come with us as we evade reality and go into detail about a new book. We'll be covering the book from beginning to end, so there will be spoilers. Today we're going to vague land that is definitely not Norway.
Yep. It's Over There-istan, America's greatest enemy since the 1950s.
Speaking of, published 1959, The Rescuers is a British children's novel that went on to inspire the Rescuers series of movies by Disney. All two of them. But how does the first movie compare to the first book? And where is Miss Bianca's accent from? Are we considering that Hungarian? Is that a Hungarian accent?
It's really unclear.
She's got questions.
But the actress is definitely Hungarian, and I doubt she tried to put on a different accent for the mouse.
Is she? That's pretty cool.
Yep, Eva Gabor.
That's really cool. Good for them. The movie came out in 1977. Oh, she also voiced Duchess in The Aristocats.
Yeah.
Man, hello, Eva. My apologies. She passed away before we were born, though.
Yeah, her voice extended throughout the ages. It's nice to leave an echo.
Two very, very good. She was born in Budapest. Her parents were both Hungarian Jewish families. She was the first of her sisters to immigrate to the U.S. shortly after her marriage to a Swedish osteopath, which is a branch of medicine, and the photo is a dude walking on someone's back.
Well.
Oh, it's a pseudoscientific system of alternative medicine that emphasizes physical manipulation of the body's muscle tissue and bones.
Okay. I feel like this is a rabbit hole, and we should be looking for mouse holes.
That's fascinating. Okay, so she's pretty great. He's a question mark. So, the more you know. Background, this is a you pick. I didn't even know this movie was based on a book, even though in the beginning of the movie it's suggested by, and it's the first and the second book.
And I do think the second book is where they drew a lot of the themes.
Oh, yeah.
Because the second book has the evil villainess and rescuing the little girl. But even then, that's pretty much where the similarities end.
Yeah, we've got a lot of questions.
Join us as we roll through it together.
You were telling me how this shaped your childhood?
Yep, the movie, not the book. The movie set up so many expectations for how I thought adventures would be. The music, the interactions between the characters. Because, and we'll get into this, but both Bianca and Bernard have their strengths and weaknesses. They are fully fleshed out characters in this minute little children's movie.
Facts.
So I loved it. I loved the music. I loved the characters. I loved the goofiness, the action. For little Tim Kid, it was just the greatest thing.
I also grew up with this. I have always loved Miss Bianca. Just goals. I remember the movie for the most part, but I mainly remember Miss Bianca and Bernard. The bird that's in the movie that's not in the book.
Orville?
In my head, he had a much more screen time, but this movie was only like 70 minutes long and some change, so not much time.
Yeah, you know, it's not a very long movie at all.
I was expecting it to be the 90 minutes.
Yeah.
Isn't that what they shoot for? But I guess that was like a later thing. Like I said, this is the 70s. But age level, this is a children's book. Congratulations. We finally found a children's book and not just a men's book. All we have for content warning is there is some sexism and there is death. Not so much death around them. I don't even think anyone dies, but the concept of death being
omnipresent,
yeah, is definitely in there. So
they do run across a couple skeletons.
Yes, they do. That is facts.
So the danger of death is always there.
They have some really weird, oh my gosh, they were prison marched to this place and then they just dropped dead and then they have left them and now their skeletons are here. It's a little dark.
Yeah, they don't shim away on those details where it's like, yeah, this is a horrible country filled with horrible people where horrible things happened, and good luck.
Yeah. So I did not know this was a book, but looking at the cover, I don't know what cover you had, but the cover I had made it look like it was a mouse romance, but also a pirate is there.
You know, I'm guessing you had the one where it was Bianca reclining elegantly and also the mouse in the hat.
Yeah. On the front cover is Miss Bianca leaning against a fountain and Bernard having his arms behind his back and looking up bashfully. And then on the back is those two. Like Miss Bianca is a white mouse, so she's really obvious. And then Bernard. And then there's a third mouse, but he has a long hat and it's striped, but in a pirate way. So I didn't know what to expect going into this. Did you have any thoughts? Because you sent me your cover.
Yeah, when I first picked it up, I remember looking at the plot just to see the plot summary.
Oh, yes. Interesting. So on yours, she is reclining against something, but it looks like a chair, and it's not a whole fountain. And then Bernard's kind of the same, except his arms are by his side. And then in the lower corner is the pirate who's just there with his tankard.
Good old Niels, who I really came to appreciate.
Yeah, I feel bummed that he's not there, you know?
Yeah, you notice his absence once you've read the book.
He was a pretty cool dude.
Yeah, and nobody really took his place.
No, we did have the bird for a little bit, and then we have the dragonfly.
And then the swamp folk as a collective, but there really was no third person of the group. In fact, Penny herself kind of takes that third person role in the movie.
That is true. I have not read the second book. My library had the first one, and I could not find anywhere that had the second book. So, congratulations, we found another series that is a series that we will only be able to read the first book of, but so niche that I couldn't even find a summary for the second book. So what I ended up doing is I went to the Goodreads, which only says it was published this date. And so I scrolled down to the comments and I kept looking because there's always at least one person who goes into depth about it. I finally found that comment. By the way, all of them hate the movie so much. Every comment was like, oh, why in the world did Disney do it? Da-da-da-da-da.
I did not expect Rescuers Purity fan clubs.
Oh, they are...
How old do you have to be where you read the book before this?
I don't know. The person just said that they read all the books from their elementary school growing up. That was one of the comments anyway. That's the only one that talked about it. But I will tell you, it's these niche books that will get the most, how dare you not agree with my opinion comments anywhere. Goodness, I cannot even tell you.
I'd love to be that fired up over a 120-page children's book.
I think the same thing every time. You see a comment that's like, you guys are stupid for having this opinion. I was like, I don't think I'm that passionate about anything.
On a certain level, you kind of realize the futility of the argument, but you have to appreciate just how much energy they're able to pour into something so minuscule.
I hope that made you feel better, but I don't think it did.
I hope you're the president of like a trade union or something who's just like has so much other problems that you just have to delve into this as well.
I needed to vent about this children's book so I could go on with my very important life. It's fascinating. But he talked about how in the book, it's the opposite of the first book, because the first book, when we'll go into it more, everything goes right. And so apparently in the second book, everything goes wrong. It's about a little girl who is trapped by a duchess. And so Miss Bianca and Bernard, they do meet up again, which is nice, meet up and go rescue the girl, which is what the movie's about. Because that is definitely not what this book is about. And it was to the point where I was like, what is the minimum amount of material to be inspired by?
Yeah, we had just a little touches of this conversation. When does it shift from inspired by to fan fiction? And I want to know, can corporations have fan fiction, or is it always inspired by for them? What's the dollar limit off of this?
If they're making money off of it, it's inspired by.
Because I mean, like 50 Shades of Grey was originally a Twilight fan fiction.
Yep, I don't know. I wonder about that all the time. But
I try not to think about it.
This book, there's no way that they could have, I don't think they could have taken this book and turned it into a movie. I think taking the second book with the little girl is much more sympathetic because we're breaking into jail to get this prisoner out.
Yeah.
Because he's a poet?
Yeah, this is a vaguely disguised Soviet Union, and they're just breaking in and busting this guy out.
All we know about him is he's a Norwegian poet. We don't know why he got put in prison. We don't know why he's even here. This is not Norway. We just know there's mice, and they're the Prisoners' Aid Society?
Yeah, not the Rescue Aid Society, who has an amazing theme song in the movie, but the Prisoner Aid Society.
I can't imagine corporate America being like, yeah, mice comfort prisoners and break them out sometimes because they're poets.
Yeah, there was definitely a child-friendly meeting into this. I would love to see where they first started getting the notes. I would love to see the concept art and all of that.
It would be so interesting. But yeah, so it starts out and the Prisoner Society, everyone's there. Oh no, there's a horrible prison called the Black Castle that every mouse is afraid of, including ones that got the Jean Fromage medal. Medals are very important.
Nope, it was the Tybalt medal, wasn't it?
The Tybalt medal is the second one. No, Jean Fromage is a brave mouse who went to Turkey to comfort a French sailor boy arrested in Constantinople. So there's a medal named after it. Definitely different from the movie when they're like, no, it goes back to ancient Greece where a mouse helped a lion.
Euripides mouse.
There's some differences. But yeah, the chairwoman wants to free a Norwegian poet. They say we should get a Norwegian mouse to do it because apparently mice speak 2 languages.
Yeah, mice are very cultured.
Mouse language and whatever language from the country they are a part of. So mice can talk to people is facts.
Yeah, they can talk to everybody. We learned that from the movie.
Yeah, well, and here's the thing. Whereas the movie was, first of all, it takes place in New York, which, how American of you, at the United Nations, where all the delegates get together, but all the mouse delegates get together, and I'm just so curious if the delegates know they have mice, or if this is just a hidden society they don't know about. It's not clear, and I just have questions. But in the movie, Miss Bianca is the Hungarian representative, and Bernard is just someone who works there. Whereas in the book, Bernard is part of the society. He does work in the pantry, but he's part of the society, and he's the one that has to go and talk to Miss Bianca and be like, hey, you should go win you and your boy because she's the pet of a delegate's son, and she lives in a China pagoda, which I just have questions about, but that's also beside the point. It must be horrible to transport. So much wrapping. But so Bernard has to go talk Miss Bianca into doing it because she is basically a kept mouse. She lives in a fancy house. She gets fancy food. The little boy adores her.
So there is a difference in this world between mice kept as pets and mice that are wild.
But almost all of them belong to the Prison Aid Society.
Or at least know of it.
The ambassador is getting transferred to Norway. So Miss Bianca goes to Norway with the boy, and his name is the boy, and his dad. Oh, yeah, by the way, it takes him forever to convince her to do this.
Yeah, and they kind of have this back and forth going on between them as he's asking her to do this.
Yeah, and her big thing is she's the boy's only friend, which is so sad.
Yeah.
And she takes that very seriously.
Up until the next book.
Well, she mentions writing poetry, which causes Bernard to tell her, oh my gosh, there's a poet in the Black Castle, to which she faints. It kind of made sense in the book, but now when I'm summarizing, I'm like, that's a little lame. She's not getting enough oxygen. Anyway, he convinces her to do it, to be brave and whatever. She goes to Norway. When she's there, she tries to find the pantry because he's from the pantry. And she ends up in the cellar instead. It was a little cute because she's like, mouse instincts. But she ends up finding them.
Yeah, she kind of is infatuated with the idea of Bernard for about half the book.
Yes, because he is so different than the world she comes from.
And it's kind of reciprocated because everybody in the Prisoner Aid Society knew of Bianca and was like, oh, wow, she lives in a pagoda and she wears a silver necklace. And nobody believed it, except they went there and it was actually all true.
Yeah, I was surprised it was all true. That is facts.
So Bianca goes over to this almost pirate cove, this sailor cove.
Yeah, I was about to say, apparently Norwegians are pirates. We've shifted a little.
It's a very salty sailor kind of deal.
She was not going to have historical inaccuracies in her books, no horned helmets. But Nils gets picked because he just so happens to be standing next to the guy.
Yeah, good for Niels. He did not he volunteered, but so did everybody else.
And that kind of happens in the movie, and she's like, oh my gosh, who am I going to pick? I'm going to pick the guy in the bottle. But it's just so funny. He's just the petty officer's like, anyone will do it. In fact, looks to his right, this guy is going to go with you. I love it.
And you know what? Niels takes it on the chin. He is a trooper. He's just like, yeah, I'll do it.
He's great. He's perfect.
He is the workhorse of this entire book.
He's great. I love him. He's wonderful. But I just love that's how he got picked. There's actually a lot of humor in the book, and I really appreciate it. For example, Bianca sucks at drawing maps.
I love this part.
They're going to go by boat, and he's like, cool, draw us a map. So she tries to, and then it sucks. And she's like, you know what? I'm going to draw something else instead. And she draws a flowered hat like you would wear to tea. And Nils follows it, and it's accurate, and he's like, this is the best map I've ever had. And she's like, I will never tell anyone.
Yeah, she draws a hat just to prove that she could draw, and then Niels is like, yeah, I can make this out, and then it works.
It works so well. And she's like, thank goodness, because I couldn't have done it. It's just so great.
And the other part of it is Niels and his poor boots.
Oh my goodness.
Niels loves his boots, his galoshes, his water sloggers, whatever you want to call them.
Which is very fair.
In which he has so many different items that shouldn't normally be or fit in boots.
True.
And he makes Bianca wear them as well.
Yes, he gets his mom's.
His own mother's boots.
Yes.
But that's what we're talking about. This book has just little humorous throwaway lines.
And it's so good. It's very cute. But anyway, they go by boat to there, which I know Bianca's going because she's like, I need to be brave and whatever. But my girl, I would panic if my mouse suddenly disappeared. I don't know how long this takes because we don't know where the heck they're going. Not Norway. But anyway, they're on a boat. It kind of sucks. She's not made for this. Nils is very nice about it and even gives her a pair of his mom's pajamas. Very kind. But throughout the book, she writes little poems and is very cute. I like it. Culture. But she writes a poem and puts it in a bottle and has Nils throw it overboard in case she doesn't make it.
Which may have been where they got the idea for the first movie.
Oh, yeah. And I wondered that too. Is like, is that the help in the bottle? But it was just, you're so dramatic. I love you. She's like, in case I die, he will find this letter and know that I loved him. And this, that, and the other thing. And I was like, honey, you have an upset stomach.
Yeah, her head is full of Bernard the entire way back to wherever it is the Prisoner Aid Society is meeting.
Yeah, it's this back and forth of, do I like him, but don't I like him, but do I like him, but don't I like him? And it's not tedious. I think it's done in a fair amount, because it definitely could have, but I think it adds to their little dilemma. Leads to a very interesting ending, but we'll get there. But yeah, on the boat she decides, I will return to the boy. And then she sees Bernard again. She's like, but I could stay here, and I could be poor, and I could teach people lessons. Then she's like, nah, I'm gonna go back. But could I be poor? It's a whole thing through the whole book. But as luck would have it, they get to wherever they are, someplace with rivers. And wouldn't you know it, the boys' model speedboat, which is the perfect size for mice to travel in, is just hanging out.
Yep, just in the port, just hanging out. And Niels is over the moon. It
works. It's radium powered, which it is the 1950s, so I believe it. I just have questions. But Miss Bianca thinks that a servant got tired of him playing with it and just like threw it out. What was the kid doing with it?
Probably just being a lonely kid whose only friend is a mouse.
I cannot imagine what he did with a model speedboat that would get it, whatever. Niles figures out how to do it, and they manage to get back to the capital via the map. She takes Niles and is like, hey, I did the thing! And once there, they're like, yay, we have Nils, but we need more people! And Bernard ends up volunteering to help, which leads to Miss Bianca volunteering to help, which is very interesting, because they flipped it for the movie. Girl power, I guess, because Miss Bianca was like, I want this assignment immediately. And then the dude was like, well, I don't know. It's not a men's world. Which was such a weird thing to say, but it was the 70s. Still weird.
Yep, it's the 70s based on a 50s book.
Yeah, it was just weird for him to say that. He's like, it's not a men's world anymore. But anyway, here you go, the assignment. I was like, that's weird. One thing I will say about the movie, let me double check. It was directed by 3 men. Movie script writer. Oh, good for Margery. There was also Ken Anderson, who is an American pro wrestler. I don't think that's right.
What, pro wrestlers can't write mice screenplays?
He was born in 1976. I don't think he was writing the screenplay.
It is a children's book. Let's not doubt this guy.
But the movie came out in 1977. He was 1.
I don't judge.
Very talented. But side-eye, she really wants the assignment. She gets up there. Bernard suddenly is like, no, you shouldn't go because it's dangerous. And Bianca smiles at him like, oh my goodness, he's thinking about me. No. No woman ever. I really want to do something. I want to do the thing. Please let me do the thing. I don't know. It could be dangerous. Oh my gosh, who cares? This random mouse that I met outside who's very bad at moving combs.
Yeah, I mean, women fall in love with janitors all the time.
That had me a little bit side-eyeing. Okay, sure.
I do think they're trying to give some character to the male mouse chairperson who is kind of like, oh, here's this doddering old guy who is kind of stuck in the old patriarchal mindset of women shouldn't be out there on rescue missions.
But anyway, I will immediately give you the rescue mission. That's why it was weird. It'd be one thing if he would like actually followed that line, but he was just immediately like, yep, here you go. I just think you should have someone go with you.
Yep.
Which is fair. I mean, they probably should be working in twos just in general.
Yep.
But that's the movie.
Yep.
And once again, all the other delegates are like, oh my gosh, she's pretty. I want to go with her. And she's like, oh my goodness, this is such a hard decision. I'm going to choose the mouse that cannot get out of a bottle. But in the book, they are going to the Black Castle. So they go on a wagon, which is a whole thing because it feels joyful. There's field mice. It's all great and wonderful till they get to closer to the Black Castle. And I'm unaware if this is the last unicorn and the land is just cursed. It's very stark, the difference between, oh my goodness, field mice everywhere. It's wonderful. It's beautiful. It's great. Anyway, nothing lives here.
Yeah, and don't they see dead animals and corpses outside?
Yeah, it's just casual biome shift on the way to the Black Castle.
Yeah, just straight Minecraft border. Just here's where things live, here's where things don't.
It doesn't need to be that deep. But yeah, it was just like, okay, well, there you go. They get to the Black Castle. They manage to get in. Apparently, this is the only time a year, once a year, they get provisions into the place.
And you know, now that I think about it, is that the entire time, these three mice, Niels, Bianca, and Bernard, were eating the supplies on the way there.
Yep, thankfully they're mice though, and don't eat that much. But yeah, I'm surprised no one was like, this one's open.
I wonder if they even cared. They're probably just going to feed it to the prisoners anyway.
Yeah, except for the bubble gum and cigarettes. Those are for the captain, the head jailer. And I love that they get there and Nils is like, I'm going to follow the jailer with the best boots. And that's the guy we do for it. So it follows him, finds the head jailer's room. Apparently he tortures butterflies for fun. Just a great guy, really. Anyway, they managed to find the only mouse hole in the entire place. I see what she's saying a little bit. Yeah, that does make sense. They do kind of happen to run into very good things, but it's good.
Yeah, there is kind of a Deus Ex Machina kind of thing, but you know what? There was at least one mouse here at some time.
Yes, which just so many questions. But I am curious. I'm just curious why they do keep it so rodent-free. At least in the upper areas, there's a cat. The cat's really good. Mouser. Bianca is not aware that she should be afraid of cats.
Oh yeah, we kind of skipped over that because Miss Bianca had a friend that was a cat.
And so she thinks they're all good and just a little misunderstood. And that comes across in the movie a little bit when they go to the zoo and she's like, you woke him up, so of course he's angry. But she is scared of cats when she runs into cats later on. But yeah.
Rufus, that's the cat's name from the movie.
Yeah, which I love Rufus. He's such a great ad. I'm really curious if he was in the second book, but I don't know. Like I said, I could not get a synopsis to save my life. But it's looking bad. They dress up the place, which there are illustrations throughout the book. And one of my favorite illustrations is the mouse hole. Because they mention, oh yeah, we put up the wrappers to have wallpaper and we kind of made this chimney out of stuff and they have seats and things. And there's an illustration of it. And it does look rather cozy.
Yeah, it goes into detail that the head jailer being an absolute slob.
Yes.
Kind of makes having little home comforts a bit better because he'll leave the wrappers just on the floor and the mice will take them and use them as wallpaper.
Yeah, he's a gross person. How do you not have mice? Honestly, not great. Anyway, it's looking bad. They have no idea what to do here. There's no way to get to the prisoners. There's a cat running around constantly that they're having to look out for. It is just not looking good. Except one day, Bianca and the cat get left alone together. So she's like, oh, how did the guys not at some point be like, hey, cats are bad? You know, the one we're hiding from constantly, they're bad. But apparently they did not do that at any point. But it's good because she ends up thinking that the cat wants to play with her. And so she plays with him and he wants to eat her.
Cat.
But it's okay. It is kind of funny. He thinks he's terrifying, the cat. And so he'll say things and she'll be like, oh my gosh, that's so cute. That's so fun. good. That's so great.
Yeah, he's trying his hardest to terrify her, and she's just loving it.
She thinks he's the cutest thing ever, and they're playing a game, and it's so much fun, and I just love it. And she even cleans a mat in his fur and finds a piece of writing written in blood.
Yeah, this disgusting owner has a equally disgusting cat that has a piece of paper written in blood.
A little bit. But that's okay, because guess what? It says, if I ever see Norway again, and this just re-energizes them. This is what they needed. This is the difference.
And by the way, they've been there for a few weeks at that point, over a month.
Yeah.
So, by the way, flashback to the little ambassador's boy who has probably already wept all his tears out over his missing mouse.
Probably has another mouse by now, honestly, but he doesn't. I was a little surprised. I thought she would come back to a friend. But yeah, I also thought the same thing. I'm like, girl, what are you coming back to at this point? You've been gone for so long. But that's okay. We'll get there. So she also gets from the cat that New Year's is the day to do it because everyone has off and they eat a lot of food and drink a lot of alcohol, and then they all are hungover the next day. She even gets Malmut to kinda admit that he also feasts out too. So they're like, this is the time to do it. Whatever they have to do. They figured out how to kind of get there. They found this castle was originally and actually a castle. That shocked me more than anything else, which goes back to the King Haggard of it all. It's like, what evil king turned their castle into a prison?
For all you villains out there, all you junior villains out there, do not buy your castle by the sea. It is never a good idea. It has never worked out.
No, it has not. So, because it's been raining a lot lately, the water gate, which there's a river nearby, so there's a water gate. So previously it would be very easy to get to the castle from the water, usually to supply stuff for servants and whatnot, but very convenient for them. So they're going to use the water gate because it's an exit. They just need to figure out how to get him there. They're doing pretty well considering.
Yeah, and by the way, these two mice, Niels and Bernard, scale all the way up and down a sheer cliff.
Because they're like, there has to be. There just has to be another exit. And there is. Congratulations, guys. So they just need to do it. They need to do the thing. We're there. This is the only time they're going to be able to do it unless they want to stay there for like a whole heck another year. So they do it. They end up getting the key because that was the last part.
Yeah, just this drunk guy has the keys.
This guard puts the key into the thing and then falls asleep? That's narcolepsy. You can't convince me otherwise. My dude, I have almost fallen asleep in situations before, but never standing and actively doing something. I was usually sitting. Interesting. So they end up being able to get to the key, and Bernard had to jump around him to get up there. But they get in. They finally reach the prisoner. Nils is able to get the poet to understand he's very dehydrated and malnourished.
Yeah, he's a wretched figure, this poet.
It's pretty rough. So they manage to get him out. They go through the water gate.
And he's probably thinking this is all a fever dream at this point. Talking mice, freeing him from the prison.
If it's a fever dream, just go along with it.
Yeah, and that's exactly what he does.
And that is exactly what he does. He does the thing. And so I'm so proud of him. There just so happens to be raft people. Yay! There's people that go on rafts in the area and they don't ask any questions.
Yeah, they probably hate that prison as much as anyone else.
They're like, snitches get stitches.
Yep. And by the way, at this point in the book, this is only like 10 pages from the end.
Yeah.
When I first started reading the book, I expected this guy to take as much of a place as Petty did in the movie. No, you are the goal. You are not a character.
Nope. He barely even talks.
Yeah, he gets all of like 10 lines at most, maybe. Maybe not even that much.
So they go by the raft. The raft people give him food, and the mice scared a woman on the raft. They have chickens and other stuff on there. They live a life on their rafts. And I'm just, what country are we in? I'm so curious. It sounds like Hungary, honestly.
She wanted to make it vague enough that it could probably be anything in the Eastern Bloc.
Yeah. Because at one point when she was like, oh yeah, there's a bunch of canals, I was like, are we in Venice?
She also mentions a desert and mountains. So at first I thought, oh, it's Turkey. And then it's like, no, it's the Soviet Union. But no, it's just over there, Stan.
Yeah, which I still love that. The movie's like, nah, New York. Dun, 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 dun.
But the raft people, they give him clothes. And because of their kind service, the mice offer offer to never go on their rafts again, right?
Yep, we solemnly swear to never go on any of your rafts ever again.
Just universal mice proclamations.
And she's an English writer. I was just double checking. I was like, are you from Hungary secretly and you moved to the UK? No, she was born in the UK, specifically Salisbury district. She wrote 2 mysteries. Wait a second. She wrote 14 children's novels, 4 plays, 2 mysteries, and numerous short stories. She is, of course, best known for The Rescuers. Fun fact about her. Oh, she has a bunch of adult novels, too. I doubt we'd be able to find most of them, honestly.
Probably not. We can't even find the second book of The Rescuers.
Yeah, but good book. Yeah, so they make it back, and Bianca is sitting there. Do I go back? Do I stay? Oh yeah, by the way, they make an award even better than the Jean Fromage award. I think it's the Nils and Bianca, or the Bianca and Nils. Bernard just gets totally skipped over.
Having a 3-person name medal is just too long.
Too much. All the other ones already have a first name anyway. But it was just, dang, okay, well, fine. But she's not sure what to do. Nils goes back to Norway.
And he gets to keep the boat.
He gets to keep the boat, and he uses the map to get back. He probably meets up with the poet, because the poet's like, hey, we'll meet up, little buddy.
Yeah, by the way, I think they're somewhere in the Mediterranean as they're doing this. And so on a little toy boat, this Norwegian mouse makes it all the way back home.
So many questions. But hey, it's radium powered. We don't need to worry about batteries.
Goodness.
Might need to worry about cancer, but...
Might need to worry about Niels, yeah.
Might need to worry about some genetic mutations, but it's fine. Yeah, it's Nils and Miss Bianca medal. They can say Miss Bianca, but they can't say Bernard. Anyway, Bianca is standing in the road being like, do I stay with Bernard? Do I go back to my boy? When 2 humans are like, hey, that's a white mouse with a silver chain. I bet that's such and such. We should put her on a plane and go back to the boy. And she's like, it is fate. Goodbye, Bernard. I am going back to my boy.
Yeah, and there was like some class distinction back there too. Yeah, we're probably just in the wrong social class for it to ever work.
Bye.
Yeah.
The answer is no, she could not be poor. But apparently, they meet back up in the second book, which makes me really happy. But yeah, I was not expecting that. I literally was not expecting her to be like, I'm going back to the boy in Norway. Goodbye, Bernard.
Yeah, very much not movie.
Very much not movie. It was a little bit shocking. But that's it. That's the whole book. The end.
Short, sweet, and to the point.
How in the world did we get the movie? I like the movie because we watched Secret of Nim, and I'm not sold on it, which is hilarious because that's the one where my husband was like, this is a children's classic. But this one, he's like, it's boring. I love it. There's so many good parts to it that I don't even care that it's not the book. I view them as separate entities.
Yeah.
They both exist, and I'm happy that both exist.
Yeah, I love how both characters are strong in their own way, but they still need help.
And they're compassionate, and that is one of their biggest strengths, is that they're good people, and there's so much stuff in it. And then the scene of the alligator playing the organ.
Yes.
To get the mice out is so inventive. I love it so much. I did find out that the book has hound dogs, not alligators.
Yeah, and by the way, the second book, it seems a lot more gruesome.
Yeah.
Than the first book in the movie.
Yeah.
It directly implies the death of orphan children.
Good night, kid. Sleep tight.
Yeah. Good night, everybody.
Hope you enjoyed your bedtime story.
Yeah, in the movie, you just have some amazing gaslighting by the villain.
Yes.
Masterclass in gaslighting.
The precursor to Mother Gothel, honestly.
Uh-huh. You're so homely. Who would ever want you? Go to bed now.
Penny gets kidnapped because a diamonds fell down a small thing, and so they're like, well, we can't get it, so let's go kidnap a child. That seems like the appropriate solution to this.
Yeah, it's kind of like the early industrialists where little children's hands could fit inside to clean the machinery.
Yeah.
Just kind of take that late 19th century thought and move it up a few years.
Just include kidnapping.
Uh-huh.
What? What is happening? Because Because by all rights, she is a Cruella de Vil. She is a successful businesswoman that has a business in New York, but also has a steamship in Louisiana. I had more questions about that as an adult, but that's beside the point. She has two alligators that love her. She's a businesswoman. She's good at gaslighting, which we're Americans, so as long as the villain's good at something, we find that admirable.
Yeah, she's not a bad shot either.
For her mind to be like, kidnap children. That's a rational thing we should do. Anyway, she kidnaps a little girl and is like, hey, you need to go into this, basically a well, and find a diamond. And there's a scene where Penny's like, oh, if I do that, you'll take me back to the orphanage. And she's like, what? You don't like staying here? What's wrong with here? Which is, oh, that's along the lines of, oh, I must just be a terrible parent, levels of manipulation.
Uh-huh.
And then Penny's like, well, if I don't go back to the orphanage, I'll never get adopted. And she's like straight up like, no one would adopt you, honey. Bye.
Yeah, and she does it while smiling, too. It's like, oh, no one would ever adopt you, sweetie.
How are you more evil than the puppy skinner? Oh my god. And she's taking off her makeup so casually during this. Oh my gosh.
And by the way, at the end of the movie, it is never indirectly or directly implied what happened to her. Her final scene in the movie is her getting snapped at by those same alligators.
Oh, she got eaten. Have you ever seen The Princess and the Cobbler?
Yeah, I've seen bits and pieces.
Oh, first of all, it was my favorite movie as a child. But also another villain who has alligators who ends up getting eaten by his own alligators, except done in a cartoony way with eyeballs, where the eyeballs suddenly disappear, and teeth and whatnot. I watched some very interesting movies growing up. That was a very niche one, and it was my favorite movie. I loved watching it. I was obsessed. I watched it all the time.
I only remember hearing about it because it got like a re-release or something.
It's a whole thing. It's a weird trend in children's media if you have alligators, like Peter Pan.
Alligator, yeah.
Alligator. It's just all about the alligator-eating people.
Now that you mention it, I want to go find like alligator movies now. There was even one in All Dogs Go to Heaven.
Yeah.
The big-lipped alligator of fame and fortune.
Animators just like alligators eating people. I don't know. But I like the alligators. I like the little swamp people and we're just looking for a charge. And then the suspensefulness of the dragonfly actually getting there and not getting eaten by bats.
Yeah, that was a good scene.
How were you bored, husband? I should have made him rewatch it.
By the way, the detail I noticed this time around that I didn't notice as a kid is the turtle is wearing a Confederate hat.
Is he?
Uh-huh.
Oh my goodness.
And considering he's a turtle, he might be a veteran.
It is Louisiana.
Uh-huh. My favorite character from that movie was always the rabbit.
Pretty good.
He has all of like 2 lines, but the little fishing line and how cocky he is.
Yeah, I will say it's a musical in that none of the characters sing, but there's a lot of moments where it's just music in the background and sadness. And so I did notice a little bit tonally wise, it was a little weird going from Lady basically singing high-pitched a cappella about sad children.
Yeah, where it's like, don't cry, little one. And then all of a sudden it's like, boy, howdy, we ought to get them out our swamp.
And then it switched to slapstick music.
I laughed a bit because that music is incredible.
It's very good, but I was just, this doesn't seem right. We were just singing about crying kidnapped children.
Crying kidnapped children can enjoy twangy banjos.
Oh my gosh. But yeah, and then the rescuers help him out. They manage to get the diamond, and she doesn't get the diamond, and she probably gets eaten. I think it's just facts. And that other dude, I don't know what is with Disney and having extremely villainous women bullying random men, like mid-tier men.
What, you don't consider Snoop's a high-value male?
That dude, okay, first of all, it's an insult, but it's not because he's an accountant. And the negative stereotypes of an accountant. I know accountants, they're wonderful. They're great people. They're fine. They make their money doing what they do. They're fine. But it's just that one song where it's like, I don't tell people what I do. I just tell them I'm an accountant, because then they won't ask questions.
By the way, the voice acting in this movie, incredible, start to finish.
Yes, it is very good.
I mean, even Snoop's, even this minor B villain, has an amazing voice for what he does.
But yeah, we just had to have a man for her to push around to prove that she truly is villainous. I don't know. Oh my gosh. He's such a non-entity to me. I forgot he existed. The movie started, well, not started. You get halfway through because once again, it's only 70 minutes, so like 35 minutes in. This guy shows up and I was like, oh yeah, that dude. What does he do besides get it yelled at?
Not much.
Not much.
In fact, that's why she's down there, is that he doesn't do enough.
Yeah, for some reason, Penny writes the note, puts it in a bottle. It gets somehow found by the rescuers. And for some reason, Penny put the name of the orphanage that she was previously at. I don't know if that's what I would put. I would put, like I'm trapped on a boathouse in Louisiana. I don't know if she knows where she is, but she knows that she's in a swamp. She keeps trying to escape. She knows she's on a houseboat. She knows she's somewhere swampy, but she ends up putting the name of the orphanage back in New York on the letter.
She is only 6 years old.
Yeah, her writing is pretty on point with 6-year-olds.
She could not spell Louisiana.
No.
If you were raised in an orphanage and then kidnapped, you cannot spell Louisiana. For any of you listening who were kidnapped and sent to Louisiana as a kid, feel free to prove me wrong in the comments.
Anyway, that's beside the point. She's 6, whatever. I'll take it. But she got so lucky because they go to the orphanage and the cat's like, we haven't seen her for a while. Are they still looking for her? Nope. Granted, it's another lost kid in New York, but still, it was just the callousness of it. It was just like, nope, I haven't seen her in a while. What? They get him to be like, hey, when was the last time you saw her? Like, last time I saw her, she was crying because no one wants to adopt her. I was just like, well, dang. This cat is so casual. And by the way, he was so funny. When he first sees them, he's like, guys, you need to leave. If they find mice, they're going to realize I'm not micing. And then I'll get kicked out and I am old. I was like, okay, that is all fair. I'm very glad he gets adopted as well.
Yeah.
But they end up getting the fact that they needed to go to this pawn shop antiquity place. I don't know exactly what they're doing there, but they get there and, wouldn't you know it, just in time for her to have a phone call and be like, I'm going to Louisiana.
Oh yeah, the reason they were there is because Rufus, the cat, told them, yeah, this weird woman tried to get Penny in her car, and I know exactly where she lives.
Rufus!
Coming through, Rufus. Although, Rufus throws a little shade on the way out, where it's like, you're just 2 mice, you can't do anything.
Well, you certainly have helped. I just can't. When have you seen her last? I don't know. I'd have to think about it. Oh, wait, maybe it's that time this woman tried to kidnap her. Rufus! He's just so casual. As a child, I just ran with it. I'm like, okay, yeah, thank you, Rufus. I'm so glad you knew that and you told them the thing. But as an adult, I'm just like, my man.
We're just moving from point A to point B.
Oh my goodness. Anyway, it's fine. They try to get in her suitcase. They manage to get into the suitcase, except the suitcase falls out. They have to fly via bird.
Yep, Air Orville.
Anyway, the fact that works, by the way, how long would it take a bird that size to fly from New York to Louisiana? Probably the same amount of time it took them to go by boat from Norway to wherever stand. Oh my goodness. The important thing is they go with Penny. She goes down the well. They find the diamond.
The devil's eye.
Has managed to fall into a skull? I was confused here. How did that not fall down the gigantic well? The place floods often.
Yeah, every tide.
Questions.
I think they did say it was a pirate's treasure cove, and so they hid it there. So I guess the thing was they hid it in that skull.
In a skull. The skull that apparently weighs enough that does not get taken by the tide that threatens a girl. I think the girl weighs more than the skull, but that's beside the point. It's a children's movie. It's very dramatic.
Yep.
They get the diamond. She hides it in the teddy bear. She has a teddy bear, by the way.
Yep. Medusa hides it in the teddy bear.
Yes.
By the way, great name for a villain. Medusa.
Very good.
Her parents must have hated her.
I feel like that has to be a work name, you know?
Madame Medusa. You got that alliteration going.
Bombastic side-eye. But it's fine. It's all good. Ends up being a slapstick humor fest when all the swamp creatures come and start attacking. And anyway, the important thing is she probably gets eaten by alligators and Penny's free.
Yep, that about sums up the latter half of the movie.
I just have so many. How did she get back to New York?
I think it's best not to ask too many questions. If they had made this a 90-minute film, they could have done that. But
oh yeah, but we only have 70-something minutes. So They get back.
And as a kid, would you question it?
I did not question it.
Yeah, they kid tested this. They sat kids in front of a big old monitor and said, do you have any questions? And they were like, no.
Oh my goodness. So, for whatever reason, her being unadoptable no longer accounts for it. She gets adopted. And the kids sing for She's a Jolly Good Fellow, but instead of it being about birthdays, it's about her getting adopted.
Yeah.
It's televised.
Good for those kids. It just goes to show it doesn't matter who you are on the inside so long as you're really heroic.
That is the key. Petty's brave. The mice are brave. Miss Bianca is brave and feminine. Let's go. But yeah, I would really like to read that second book and figure it out a little bit more. Because I saw in the title, like I said, in the beginning screens, it says, by the way, it says suggested by the rescuers and Miss Bianca. Is that a step away from inspired by? It was a mere suggestion from these books that we should do this. But yeah, and they end up together, which is nice. I have never seen The Down Under. Have you seen it? Did you watch it?
Yeah, I watched it a few times as a kid.
Well, I just meant you borrowed that duel set. Did you rewatch it recently?
No, I didn't. I watched the first one and I'm like, you know what? I don't feel like I need to watch Down Under. I'm comfortable with the nostalgia pill I just swallowed.
Yeah, it's very strange. So the first Rescuers came out in 1977. And so when do you think the second movie would come out?
Probably a few years after that, but I know the animation is way too good for it to still be in the 70s.
It came out in the 90s. Who in the world was sitting around like, you know what we need? A Rescuers sequel.
Yeah, and by the way, this is part of the Disney Renaissance, the second wave Disney that came out in the 90s.
Not the same people, but the place that brought you The Little Mermaid, Aladdin, Beauty and the Beast was bringing you The Rescuers Down Under. I want to know how we got there.
You know, I have no idea, but I will say this about the second movie, just from what I can remember. Whoever voiced the villain had a fantastic time. He loved his job.
Oh, I love that. But general thoughts, I wish I could get my hands on the other books. That would be so nice. It sounds like it got better. It was enjoyable through all the books. I think there's like 6 of them. But for some reason, my library system's like, you know what? We don't need the rest of the Rescuer series. You know what we do need every single book of? The Great Mouse Detective. We need both the physical copies and the audiobooks for that series. Spoilers about what our next episode's about. But I've always found that fascinating. That they were like, we don't need this, but we need this. I want to speak to their children's acquisition person, but that's beside the, it's fine. It's good. I am glad I am able to enjoy all those. Hopefully I like all those. But for this one, I wish I could do more. I think I would like them. I really enjoyed the books.
Yep, I will say I enjoyed both the movie and the book as well. I didn't think I would enjoy the book as much, and maybe I don't just because it doesn't have the same nostalgia glasses.
Well, I was worried. I was like, I don't know how I'm going to like the book. And then I liked the book, and I was like, well, crap. I like the book. Does that mean I'm going to hate the movie? And like I said, they just exist in 2 separate realms to me.
Yeah, there is some simultaneous harmony going on between these guys, even if they cover the same characters.
So I'm glad both exist. I don't know what my husband was talking about. Yeah, I think he has taste issues. One question for the author, though. Why prisoners? I'm fascinated by the concept, and it totally could be a cultural thing. It could be a time period thing. It could be something I am not currently privy to or whatever. So I'm very curious. Why prisoners? Why are we helping this random Norwegian poet escape jail?
Mine was actually pretty similar, and I was wondering, is there something that inspired this? Was there an article about a prisoner in some country that you decided, hey, you know, this should be better known, but I'm going to write a children's book about this? I mean, probably in the 50s, this is not height of the Cold War, but this is kind of like where the paranoia is coming in and all that kind of business. But I do also wonder, is there something that you could have actually written an adult novel, but you decided to make this a children's novel?
Oh, that's true. Because I could totally see, back before we had charities, we had women's groups, and women's groups would have charities and causes, and they would help the orphans, help the widowers, even to I Love Lucy in the early 50s, they had a women's group to help the arts. So that was a cultural thing. And so I'm wondering if there were prison charities where they would have drives where they would help them have clothing and food and whatever. I wouldn't be surprised if that was a thing. And it's just because of the changes in landscape, charities, privatization of jails. So, of course, we want prisoners to look bad and all that fun stuff that we're not going to go into today. But I just wonder if that was a thing. And now it's just not a thing. And we have this culture gap.
Yep. And something else I just discovered is that another question I might have had was, what did you think of the movie? But I wanted to see if she was still alive at the time. And she was. She died in 1991.
Yeah, she helped write both movies.
How about that? But the thing I found interesting is this comment. In 1959, she published The Rescuers, and though written for an adult audience, it became hugely popular with children.
Really?
What do you mean it was written for an adult audience?
Okay, something to consider. Adult is the default, so maybe she just didn't specifically say, hey, this is for kids, and she just wrote a book. And so she was like, oh yeah, I'm just writing a book. And then it became super popular with children, and so they started publishing and doing it as specifically a children's book. I don't know. That's a great question. But rating, I would give this a surprise snack out of 10. I wasn't expecting it. I don't know if I needed it in my life, but now that I've had it, I'm really glad I did. The world would be better if more people snacked, and the world would be better if more people read this book. People would be happier if they read this book, just like if they would be happier if they had a nap and a snack.
I will give it a sturdy, waterproof pair of boots out of 10. I really enjoyed this book, probably a lot more than I thought I would. It's not something that I would come back to again and again, just because it is that short that you could probably read it once and retain it for a good long while.
I feel like it's the same about where I do with Rats of Nim, where if we went to the library and my child and I were looking at books, and I was like, oh yeah, I've read this book. Let's get this one too, buddy. Totally fine, but it's not like Watership Down where I was like, I want to find a nice copy.
Yeah, I mean, I could read The Last Unicorn probably every year.
If I could get all of them, I could totally imagine myself sitting down and reading the whole series, because it took like a couple days, if that, to read it, and I am a slow reader. So it's just a short little snack.
If you just read like 20 pages before bed, you'll be done in a week.
Yeah, I think it has 11 chapters. So if you read a chapter a night, you can have it back before that 14-day library hold.
Yep.
But have you read this book? Porcelain Pagoda or Pantry? Do you have any book recommendations for us? Tell us all about it in the comments below. If you liked the video, hit like, and if you're enjoying yourself, hit subscribe for more. Thank you for exploring The Rescuers with us. Join us next time when we'll be covering Revenge of the Witch by Joseph Delaney. I'm Sam Reiner.
And I'm Tim Bergman.
And we hope to see you in a frontier next time. Escape With Me Book Club is a Lunar Skulk production. Check us out on TikTok or Instagram to keep up to date with us. Lunar_SKULK.